homeschooling witch arts teacher and author of Lucia Chronicles. Today's video is all about my first Comic-Con Cleveland, the Wizard World Comic-Con, and it was pretty cool. When I was a kid, I was never into any of this kind of stuff, and then as I got older, I started becoming more interested in the X-Files, and then I got interested in Doctor Who. Then I started writing science fiction myself, and before I knew it, I was getting sucked into this other culture or tribe of people. So I attended my first Comic-Con with my friend Shannon, and we had a really, really good time. I was very excited for this because it's one of the last big events that I got to participate in before I have my back surgery in another week and a half or so. So these are some of the things that I learned at my first Comic-Con. The first thing I learned is that the Cleveland one wasn't quite so big. I know that the ones in some of the bigger cities are also larger conventions, but it wasn't that big. It took my friend and I about 2 hours to go through. I also noticed we got there at about like 1 o'clock, and I noticed that later in the day around 4 or so, because it ended at 7 on Saturday, that there was less people there, so it was a little easier to move around. So if you're not one of those people who looks at every single little thing, you probably only need about 2 or 3 hours, and if you can, I actually recommend going later in the day because it's a little less congested. The second thing I learned at Comic-Con was that people are really, really nice. Sometimes you go to really crowded places and people can be kind of rude or obnoxious, but everyone was really polite. I heard a lot of excuse me's when people bumped into one another, and I just hadn't seen that in a while, so it was really refreshing to see that kind of attitude. And I guess part of it is probably that people are really happy and want to be there. They're excited to be there. The third thing I learned was there was cosplay, but there wasn't as much cosplay as I thought. And I don't know if that's because it's a smaller convention, but it was still fun. One of the first cosplayers I saw was a guy dressed as David Tennant, standing outside a TARDIS, just taking pictures with people for fun. And I thought that was really cool, and he really got into character, so he was definitely my favorite cosplay. Let's see, the fourth thing I learned about Comic-Con was take cash. There are vendors that take the square, which is wonderful, but I find that taking cash cuts off the limit of money that I'm going to spend, because I think I would have spent a lot of money on art they don't necessarily have the wall space for. So if you're a big spender, I recommend taking cash and then not spending unless you feel very passionately about something after you run out of the cash. The fifth thing I learned about Comic-Con was that you will walk a lot. This I already knew, and I chose to wear some boots because I was kind of channeling my inner River song. But the boots were comfortable, so I was okay. If anything, my back actually hurt, and that was because I waited in line for a photo op with Matt Smith, which leads me to the sixth thing I learned at Comic-Con, which was that I was really not nervous, maybe a little apprehensive. I mean, I was nervous, I was shaking because I'm weird like that, but I was a little apprehensive that he wouldn't be like, he would be kind of aloof, possibly, because just the stereotype of actors, I guess, but he was really nice. You know, the photo itself only takes about 30 seconds, but he looked everyone in the eye, he greeted them, and he said something to them before they left, and he seemed very humble, and that made the experience even better for me, because not only is he attractive, and not only is he the 11th Doctor, but he also seems like he could be a genuinely nice person. At the very least, he appreciates his fans, and I think that is crazy important. So I had a lot of fun at my first Comic-Con. I would totally go again, especially if they're going to have actors who are either the Doctor or his companions, because for me, the Doctor Who stuff is a really, really big draw. But it was just a fun way to spend a Saturday and spend it with my fellow Whovian friend. So that's all I have for today. If you haven't gone to a Comic-Con, I suggest that you go and check it out. In the meanwhile, happy reading and happy writing.